welcome to the Kids at Play Family Tech Summit. My name is Robin Raskin, and I'm the founder of a company called Living in Digital Times. We created this company after being a journalist here at CES for like a gazillion years and seeing that products were here, but without a context. There were aisles of cool things to see and nobody talking about how we're going to use them, how they're going to change our lives. So we started this company. We run digital health, we run fitness tech, kids, moms, education, some contests, last gadget standing, mobile apps. If you want to see me, I'll give you a full calendar of events, but I'm so glad that you made the time today, because I will tell you that just a few short years ago, if you came to CES, what you saw were a lot of televisions, a lot of microwaves, and a lot of VCRs. And actually today, they still represent about 50% of sales in the consumer electronics industry. But the next 50% are the cool things. And they're the innovative things that connect our world in new ways. So for me, CES this year will be remembered as the year that gadgets got really smart. Instead of passive things that we pick up and we just sort of play with and don't have much of a relationship with, they are the third wheel in our lives. Because of internet, sensors, Bluetooth, mobility, we have the ability to connect not just us to our devices, but our devices to everything. At the worst, I'm not even going to go to how bad that could be, but at the best, and as you walk through our area, I think you'll see we can enrich our kids' lives, we can create better family home environments that are safer, we can take care of our elderly in new ways so that they age with dignity and grace. And what I want to do with you today is sort of guide you through a look in the morning of how the kids' business is affected and how kids' play is affected by new products. And I think Warren will tell you over and over, kids don't change. The technology does, and we're going to figure out how that matches. And then this afternoon, right after David Pogue speaks to us, we'll turn the conversation to parenting and families and living a connected life. So with no further ado, I'm going to leave the stage and welcome Warren Buckleitner, who's going to walk you through this morning's show.
Thanks, Robin. Hello, everybody. Thanks, Robin. A round of applause for Robin Raskin for making all this happen. This is a really wonderful time and a context that's very unique. It's Consumer Electronics Show, the biggest consumer event in the world. If you know that if you tried to fly in last night or anytime. It's a place where washing machines mix with things that you wear. As Robin said, things are getting smarter, and this is a great 6 hours. It's going to be fast, and a lot of trends, a lot of top-line stuff, and a lot of practical information. It's a good place to just soak it in. Tonight, we're going to celebrate the Cappy Prize, the Cappy Awards. 14 jurors from all around the country got together and had disagreements and some agreements. 200 products were debated. You don't have to enter to win. And we're going to award the products and two very special people, and that's going to be tonight. So we have a party in Vegas. You can't do better than that. So we're going to get started with the first panel. We're going to have, well, first of all, some housekeeping. I'm assuming you know where the restroom is. It's important. You also should hydrate well, as Robin's really good at keeping a bottle of water with her. There's water up here, I saw. There's some, you can sneak some from underneath the podium. Yeah. Make sure you have the book. I'm not going to spend a lot of time with introductions because you have the book. Complete bios are inside here. As Robin said, David Pogue is 11:30, and then Family Tech is this afternoon. So that's it. Any questions? All right, we got toys, we got cameras, 3 cameras, document cameras, and microphones. Let's get started. David, would you like to come on up first? And Robin, where'd you go? Okay. Is Donald here? Okay, good. You guys come on over and have a seat on the couch, and let's get, let's start with some top line stuff, all right? And David, you're here, so I'm going to switch over to
Is this my control?
Keynote.
This is my remote.
Yep.
Okay, I'm just going to wander then.
Awesome.
While he's doing that, I'll just start by introducing myself. I'm David Clemen. I'm the Senior Vice President of Global Trends for Dubit. And Dubit is a Leeds, UK-based research and strategy consultancy, but also a digital studio. So we built things like we built the Cart Kingdom virtual world for PBS Kids. Right now we're building the apps for the new Bob the Builder. So we can take you from research and strategy all the way through to build. There we go. And what they've asked me to speak about today is 5 things that we're keeping our eyes on at Dubit for 2016. Give you a little recap of what I'm going to be talking about. Kids and VR. We think that 2016, if you've been on the floor, you've seen all the VR. We think this is the big year for kids and VR as well. Tablet saturation. When you see our research, you'll see that tablets are really getting to the point where they are in the hands of so many kids right now, and that has implications for content as well. Smart tech and AI, some of the new things that you're seeing here on the floor that are that we think are going to be important and change things in the coming year. YouTube and YouTube Kids. Kids are using YouTube as their Google right now. You'll see that in some of our stats. And what does that mean for YouTube Kids? What does that mean for parents? And finally, a little content one, and that has to do with, we're seeing some interesting things having to do with sci-fi, horror, and fantasy. I'm going to be talking really fast today, by the way, because I don't have a whole lot of time. And I will tell you that there will be charts where you won't be able to get all the numbers from it, but I am happy to swap the slides for a business card. Give me your card afterwards. I'll be happy to send you all the slides. Here's where the data I'm going to be talking about today comes from. Dubit Trends is a quarterly survey that we do of 1,000 families in the US, 1,000 in the UK, and then as you can see, we look at other countries as well, Turkey, Brazil, Malaysia, Australia, South Africa, Germany, and look at what kids are playing with, what they have in their homes, how they're using them, when they're using them, who they're using them with, and a lot of really interesting open-ended stuff about what their favorite brands are, what they're reading, what they're watching, what they're playing, really open-ended and letting them tell us what's of interest to them. It's available from Dubit in any number of forms. You can get one country, you can get 7 categories, you can get all the countries. Some of the data also comes from a study that we did with the University of Sheffield in England. We and CBeebies, the preschool channel of the BBC, we talked to 2,000 families and did some in-depth interviews as well around the specific question of very small kids, 0 to 5, and use of tablets, and found some really interesting things about it that you'll see in just a bit. That's available free download, techandplay.org, and it comes in many different forms for developers, for preschool educators, for parents. All right, let's go straight into it. Kids in VR. We think that the myths are falling about children in VR. The first myth that we think is falling is that it's a gimmick. If you were here at CES a couple years ago, you saw all the 3D televisions, and 3D TV was going to be the next big thing, and 3D TV really didn't go anywhere. And I think the problem is that it really was something of a gimmick when it came to TV. So is VR for kids going to be 3D TV, or is it going to be the iPhone, which changed everything? We think it's more the latter. And we think it's more the latter if we think of it not as a video enhancement, not as just another way to look at the same things, but as an entirely different medium. One of my colleagues, Seth Shapiro, I think describes it really well as being a canvas of space in the way that video is a canvas of time. So if we start thinking about storytelling in space, it's also so much more immersive than television or 3D. Look at the Stanford University studies of empathy and how empathy builds when you see something in VR as opposed to when you see it just on a screen in front of you. It's not for kids. You know, we've really held back on developing VR for children because we felt like maybe it wasn't healthy for them, maybe they weren't, their brains weren't ready for it. We've actually, that's changing now. We did some studies with kids on the Oculus Rift and found not only was it comfortable for them, not only did they love it, they instantly started generating all these wonderful ideas for what they'd want to do with it. And the fascinating thing, the first ideas they came up with had to do with education. Here's how I want to learn with this. I want to immerse myself in a period of time or in a place in the world. These are some of the things that they said about it, and someone else's research, Greenlight VR, they're really interested in getting to it. So and in our tests, they had no problems. You know, if you limit the time, you don't do this for hours, they have no problem even with the Oculus. But where we really think the game is changing is Google Cardboard. Because one of the myths about VR is that it's expensive. This is real. This is from Australia. The Kellogg's company there turned the boxes of cereal into VR viewers. You fold it up, and it's a VR viewer, and they had download codes for content. So what do you pay for a box of cereal? $2.50, $3? That's how cheap VR has become right now. One of the reasons it's becoming so inexpensive, you know, as I said, Cardboard is the game changer because it uses your smartphone. And these are, again, impossible to read at this distance, but what this is showing is smartphone distribution is growing very, very quickly, and smartphone speed is growing extraordinarily quickly. The iPhone 6S is 6 times faster, or it's 5 times faster than the iPhone 6, which was 50 times faster than the original iPhone. When you've got that kind of processing speed in your pocket and you can apply it to a VR application, then it really changes the game. Tablet saturation, and what are the implications? This is our chart for 3 waves, first 3 quarters of 2015 in kids' access to tablets. Total is the light blue screen, that's all kids 2 to 15, and then we have it broken out by age. But you can see, everybody's way at the top of that chart. Tablets are in the hands of so many kids these days, and they love them. They're concentrating their media use on tablets. What happens to smartphones in a tablet world? Kids don't use smartphones to talk on. Kids don't talk on the phone these days. So what happens to the smartphones? Well, we see that there is some sign that smartphone use is decreasing among kids in between 2 and 15. But also, they're going to start being used for other things. They're going to be used, as I was saying, for virtual reality. They're going to be used in a mobile space. But the tablet really changes how the smartphone gets used. As I mentioned, we did a study with toddlers and tablets, 0 to 5 years old, with the University of Sheffield. The Cork University Hospital also did a study with very young children, and they found, very similar to what we found, that toddlers are very adept at using the basic functions of how you navigate around a tablet. Now, what they raised, which we didn't raise in our report, but I think is really interesting, is the idea that we may be able to develop assessments using the basic functions of a smartphone or of a tablet to test developmental progress, to see where a child falls in the developmental scale by what they're able to do on the tablet. Here's our research, and again, can't read it from there, don't worry about it. You can get the full report for free, you can get my slides for a business card, so don't worry about that too much. But what this shows is that development and ability to use a smartphone, ability to do the basics of it, like swiping is the very first thing that kids learn, and they learn it at a very early age. These things come in a pattern that's predictable and that goes along with child development, so that we really can start to look at, as content developers, at what makes sense depending on the audience that you're trying to reach. Smart tech and AI. There we go. I think Warren and I were just talking about it earlier. You look at these things like Alexa, like the Apple Watch, that are voice controlled. This is a perfect medium for little kids. If we can get it to the point where it can understand children's developing language and their speech patterns, then that's a great way for them to navigate. Warren was talking about YouTube Kids, which I'll talk about more in just a little bit, and the idea that you can say, I want to see peg plus cat. And there's peg plus cat. Discovery and recommendation. This is one of the biggest challenges right now in the children's media space, that there is so much content out there. We found over 60% of children 2 to 15 say that often or sometimes they have trouble finding content that they are interested in. So there's lots out, they're drowning in a sea of content, but they're having trouble finding it. Smart technology, AI, helps them find that. This slide is from some work that we did for a kids' reading program called Wandu Planet that takes what they've read and what they've liked and uses that to make recommendations for what they might like beyond that. Here's the conundrum it raises. You've probably been reading about the Hello Barbie and the questions about what it's listening to and what data it's gathering and that. I just want to pose a question. Do we have different standards today based on what the function of the toy or the object is and what data it gathers? So here we've got Cognitoys. We've got a new toy that's being introduced here at CES that is designed to help children with autism. And we've got the Hello Barbie. All of them are gathering data and they're using it in one case to help with therapy, in one case to help with learning, and in one case for play. So we really need to think deeply about when we are bothered by data gathering, what we're bothered by, and how we can address that in a smart way going forward so we get what we want without getting the unwanted side effects. YouTube and YouTube Kids. This is a question that we pose to kids in our quarterly tracker. Where do you find new media content? Where do you go to look for it? This is the total result. This is 2 to 15. Look at where YouTube rises up to. It's above every other source for finding it. It is their Google. It's how they're finding content. Now I'm going to hit the button, and what you're going to see is going through the age groups, 2 to 5, or 2 to 4, 5 to 7, 8 to 10, 11 to 15, and watch those bars rise and fall, because what you're going to see as I do that is that parents and YouTube are a huge influence early on. YouTube immediately rises as you get up to 5 to 7 and they're able to navigate the site. Parents stay very important, but as they get to 8 to 10, peers, that darker blue column, peers rise up very quickly. Parents drop a little bit, YouTube rockets. And when you get to 11 to 15, YouTube stays right there at the top. Parents continue to fall. They're able to do more with search, so there are things like the App Store is rising up, and search engines are rising up as how they find content. But YouTube is kid Google, which again brings us to a conundrum. We've all been reading about the questions around YouTube Kids and the advertising within it. We are about to have, in the next months, I think, a real-world test of what parents want. Are they hitting subscription fatigue? Okay, I'm paying the $8 for Netflix, and I'm paying for Amazon Prime, and I'm paying for Club Penguin that I can't take anymore. Would they rather pay for another subscription to get it ad-free, or are they happy for their kids to see ads in exchange for getting the free content? That's a real-world test that we're going to be facing in the next couple months. Then the last thing I wanted to bring up was, and this is just a little oddity that we're seeing in our quarterly tracking survey. We haven't done a lot. There have been little sort of forays into kids and horror, or kids and fantasy. Are you afraid of the dark? Some things like that. But we're seeing in our research that titles and genres are rising up that indicate that kids are really very interested in this. Again, it's something we're watching. It's very early. We don't know if it's a trend or if it's just something that's popping up in our research. Sci-fi fantasy is staying very flat and staying toward the higher end of kids' favorite genres. Horror has been rising quarter on quarter for the entire year. And if you look at the specific titles as well, among boys 11 to 15, Walking Dead is their #1 favorite TV show. Supernatural has made the charts now as well. If you go to girls, it's Once Upon a Time. Walking Dead is right up there near the top itself. American Horror Story, and Vampire Diaries. So we're keeping an eye on whether kids are looking for a little more edge in the programming that they're looking for. That's it from me. As I say, it was a really fast run through all this. I'm going to be here all day. I'm happy to talk with you during breaks about the research. I'm happy to connect with you after the conference. Thank you, Robin, for the opportunity.
Get on that couch.
Get up.
Get on that couch.
Best offer I've had all day.
Let's just, right. It's time for the shrinks. First of all, thank you so much. Do you always feel like after you hear David, you've heard all of the data in the world in a way that's meaningful and organized? Any questions about, and seriously, this is the man to ask about trends and how this future will play out. You asked a lot of provocative things. Any questions, comments? So, oh, there's one.
I'll ask, how do you think this will affect the kids as they enter elementary school? How will it affect our educational planning for kids as they enter school?
It's such an interesting question. I think at the same time as we're seeing all these changes in technology, we're also seeing kind of a new wave of teachers entering the market who have grown up with, I've watched for a long time, waiting till we get to the point where the generation that grew up with digital technology also grew up, or also is now in the workplace and is starting to teach. So I think we need to see new teaching methods. I saw a piece the other day that was talking about we need to look at what teachers do well and teach that way. And I thought, well, that is the best recipe for stagnation. We need to look at the way kids learn well and help teachers teach to that.
Yeah, and on Friday, actually, we have a conference right in this room called Transforming Education, and we really talk about the fact that teachers are going to have to give up some of that control in front of the classroom and learn from those kids and let them be their guides and collaborators in this journey, and the tools to measure engagement of all kinds, from the neurosciences meeting education to incubators. You'll see kids here at our mobile app showdown who are 15 and 16 years old who have done apps and won scholarships from us. And teachers are going to have to learn to flip that classroom and embrace it.
Robin, David went way over his time, but he was good, so we decided to just let him keep going. Plus, but I have these slides that are a little mushier than David's.
Imagine that, mushy slides.
But I want you to watch the screen for a second because there's something that'll start appearing in the background of the text. And that's a doodle that was drawn when I was speaking at a conference on this iPad Pro and with the pencil. And so I did this presentation at NAYC, which is a lot of preschool teachers. Novices now can really start doing some amazing things. And the point of this is that there's more power this year. And last year at this time, Apple had 3 screen sizes. Now with the watch, those are all the different Apple devices. And so that's one trend. This is really interesting. This is from Vygotsky's Zone of Proximal Development. That's an actual loom with an iPad inside of it, and hands show you how to make how to weave. And I've been using this iPad Pro with the pencil, and I've seen some artists that have gotten a hold of it. Darren Karstens, who couldn't be here this year, and Mark Schlichting, who's coming, one of the Cappy jurors, and it's really made some changes. So that's one of the drawings that have been done. So if the argument is that this is too expensive for kids, I would argue absolutely not. It's about empowerment. And we have more tools to empower kids this year than ever before. That's the screen comparison. Apple TV 4 is another one. It's Siri, and David showed Echo, Amazon's control with your voice. That really is starting to happen. I'm very excited about it. Better apps for child empowerment. Better apps for the question why, TinyBot. The concept of virtual manipulatives is that you can hardwire a concept, and this gets to your question about teaching. I was an elementary school teacher, and I know how hard it is when you have 25 kids and 1 adult. I can give them something that will, when they move on that, move their finger on that screen, that gear scrapes, and you can start building. That's called a cam. Rack and pinion steering uses that, right? So why not let a preschooler learn about that now? That's another one. YouTube Kids, as David mentioned, is like a exploding, one of the major nails in the coffin of traditional TV. And 3 more. Okay, the evil side. I'm starting to see more, I think the lower income kids that I'm seeing in our town have more access to in-app sales, apps like this. This is Starfire. If you want to date Tom Cruise, you can do that. But it's the concept of and Disney's doing it. Everybody's doing it. So as soon as it gets fun, right? As soon as it gets challenging, they pull the carrot away, and we're subjecting more low-income kids to settings which are designed to monetize something instead of teach them. And I think that's a big question that we need to talk about. David talked about this. I've got the New York Times thing that was sent out. We've seen the tilting point to the masses. It's here now. And that camera's $300. You can make your own and upload your own content. Finally, number one trend is real reality instead of artificial or virtual reality, and that is that for $19.97, I can go to Home Depot and buy a 76-piece, how do they do this? 76-piece homeowner's toolkit, and give that to a kid and let them take apart any of the gadgets here on the floor at CES, and I think that's probably the best thing.
I want to go back very briefly to one of the things you talked about, which was the in-app purchase. And I think there's a bigger issue here that there are no good financial models right now for children's media content. That, I talked a little bit about advertising, in-app purchase. We're really seeing companies struggling. I don't know if you saw the story the other day, Mind Candy, the company that made Moshi Monsters, is very close to going under. We've seen a lot of companies that put themselves up for sale, or that because there's just not a good model. We need to find one.
But I think one of the things we should pay attention to here today and think about is the notion that these children will be more used to virtual currencies and digital money, rewards, badges, incentives that have nothing to do with the dollar bill that we're used to. And so what are those things, and how can we teach them the self-discipline to manage those assets? So I think that's going to be good. So with that...
Yeah, since I'm the moderator too, and the agenda today is like the New York City subway system. We have no time to relax. We have to just keep moving. And we're right on schedule for an incredible next example from Mexico City of how you can actually implement this on a commercial scale. You want to keep your eyes open. But before we do that, some housekeeping. We're using a camera that's an ion camera that is right here, and we're going to use that to, Carrie is helping me show some of the things. We're going to do that. Also, there's a bunch of sponsors who made this possible. Robin, who are these people?
I don't know, but thank them from the bottom of my heart. We couldn't do this without them. That's why it's a free conference for all of you. Thank you.
All right, so that's what we just did. And Donald is going to be coming. He's the dinosaur, the Cognitoys, correct?
Yes, Donald, clearly, Cognitoys is powered by IBM Watson, who couldn't tell Donald how long it was going to take to get here. So he's stuck in traffic. He will be here, so we're going to move ahead a slide, and you're going to introduce Javier.
All right, thank you, David. Thanks, Robin.
Enrique, say hi.
You lost your ticket.